There's something about the moon that has always captivated us, its silvery glow casting shadows on ancient temples, its phases marking the passage of time, its presence woven into myths and legends across every civilization. It's more than just a celestial body, it's a symbol of mystery, power, and divine connection. And nowhere was this reverence more profound than in the heart of Mesopotamia, where the moon wasn't just a light in the sky, it was a god. Meet Nanna Sin, the radiant deity who ruled the night, whose story is as vast and enigmatic as the cosmos itself. This is the tale of how a single god became the heartbeat of an entire civilization, shaping their rituals, their calendars, and their very understanding of the universe. Long before telescopes or space exploration, the people of Mesopotamia looked up and saw divinity in the moon cycles. They called him Nanna in Sumerian, later known as Sin in Akkadian, a god so revered that his influence stretched from the Ziggurats of Ur to the royal courts of Babylon. But who was this luminous figure, and why did his worship endure for millennia? Was he merely a symbol of time and tides, or did he hold deeper secrets about life, death, and the divine? Today, we're peeling back the layers of history to uncover the truth behind Nanna Sin, from his celestial origins to his role as a judge of souls, a keeper of wisdom, and a bridge between heaven and earth. This isn't just a story about a forgotten god, it's a journey into the soul of an ancient world. Imagine standing beneath the moonlight in the city of Ur, where priests chanted hymns to Nanna Sin, where kings sought his guidance before going to war, where ordinary people whispered prayers under his watchful gaze. His legacy is etched into clay tablets, buried in ruins and hidden in the stars. So let's step into the shadows of history and uncover the mysteries of the moon god who once lit up the night sky and the minds of Mesopotamia. By the end of this exploration, you'll see the moon not just as a familiar sight, but as a doorway to a world where gods walked among mortals and the cosmos was alive with meaning. To understand the power Nanna Sin held over Mesopotamia, we must start at the very beginning, his extraordinary birth. This was no ordinary deity. According to ancient Sumerian hymns, Nanna Sin was the firstborn son of Enlil, the formidable god of winds and storms, and Ninlil, the compassionate goddess of grain and nourishment. But his origins were steeped in drama, a tale of forbidden love, divine punishment, and cosmic consequence. The ancient poem, Enlil and Ninlil, tells how the young moon god came into being, revealing layers of meaning about his dual nature as both a celestial ruler and a bridge between worlds. The story begins in the holy city of Nippur, where Enlil, though destined to be king of the gods, was still young and impulsive. When he became infatuated with Ninlil, his advances crossed sacred boundaries, angering the divine council. As punishment, they banished Enlil to the underworld, but Ninlil, already carrying his child, chose to follow him into the darkness. What happened next was nothing short of miraculous. Along their journey, Enlil took 3 different forms to secretly father 3 more deities with Ninlil, each destined to rule a different realm. But it was Nanna Sin, conceived before their descent, who emerged as the most radiant of them all. Born not in the heavens but in the shadowy depths of the underworld, Nanna Sin carried within him the light of the moon, a symbol of hope rising from darkness, of cycles renewed. This myth wasn't just entertainment, it was theology written in poetry. Nanna Sin's birth tied him inextricably to the rhythms of life and death. As the son of Enlil, he inherited dominion over the skies, but his underworld origins linked him to the mysteries of the afterlife. The moon's phases mirrored this duality, waxing and waning like the agricultural cycles his mother Ninlil presided over, vanishing into darkness only to return, just as crops die and are reborn. Even his name held power, Nanna meaning illuminator in Sumerian, a nod to his role as the night's guiding light, while Sin later emphasized his authority as a judge of souls in Akkadian tradition. What's striking is how these stories weren't just mythic footnotes. they shaped real-world worship. In Ur, his cult center, priests reenacted his journey from the underworld during monthly rituals, using crescent-shaped altars to channel his power. His lineage explained why kings sought his approval before battles. With Enlil's stormy might and Ninlil's life-giving grace in his blood, Nanna Sin wasn't just a god of the night sky. He was the cosmic balancing force between destruction and fertility, between the seen and unseen worlds. Among the towering figures of the Mesopotamian pantheon, Nanna Sin occupied a place of quiet but undeniable power, not through thunder or brute force, but through the measured rhythm of the cosmos itself. As one of the seven who decree, the divine council that shaped the fates of gods and mortals alike, his voice carried weight in the heavens. While deities like Enlil roared with storms or Ishtar blazed with the passion of war, Nanna Sin governed the unseen currents of existence, the passage of time, the secrets of divination, the silent wisdom written in the stars. His authority was different, rooted not in chaos but in order, a celestial metronome keeping the universe in balance. Yet to call him gentle would be to misunderstand his influence. The moon god's light could be soft, but his judgments were absolute. When kings sought his approval through oracles, they weren't merely asking for blessings, they were appealing to a deity who could see beyond the present, whose crescent-shaped sickle was as much a symbol of harvest as it was a tool to cut down the unworthy. Ancient hymns describe him as the judge whose verdict cannot be altered, a reminder that his role extended far beyond illuminating the night. In the city of Harran, where his temple rivaled even Ur's grandeur, merchants and rulers alike swore oaths in his name, knowing his gaze pierced through deception like moonlight through shadows. What set Nanna Sin apart was his duality. Unlike Enlil, whose storms symbolized unchecked power, or Ereshkigal, who ruled the underworld without compromise, the moon god embodied balance. His phases mirrored life cycles, growth and decay, visibility and hiddenness. When Mesopotamian priests tracked lunar eclipses, they weren't just recording celestial events. They were documenting the moods of a god who could withdraw his favor, plunging the world into omens of disaster. Even his association with cattle, often depicted in his iconography, revealed this layered nature. The bull symbolized both fertility and untamed strength, much like Nanna Sin himself, who could nurture crops with one hand and decree destinies with the other. Perhaps his most fascinating role was as keeper of divine wisdom. In a pantheon where knowledge was power, Nanna Sin's mastery of divination gave him unparalleled influence. The famous Tablets of Destiny, which granted authority over cosmic order, were said to reflect his lunar rhythms. Astrologers in his temples meticulously charted his movements, believing that eclipses and moon phases held coded messages about famine, war, or prosperity. This wasn't mere superstition, it was a sophisticated system of belief where the moon god acted as a celestial scribe, inscribing fate in the language of light and shadow. The contrast with his father Enlil couldn't be sharper. Where Enlil's winds brought sudden destruction, Nanna Sin's cycles offered predictability. Yet both were equally revered, a testament to how Mesopotamians saw their world, not as a battleground of opposing forces, but as a tapestry woven from both tempest and tranquility. Even in art, Nanna Sin was rarely depicted with weapons. Instead, he stood serene, his crescent crown arching like a bow that shot not arrows but time itself, an eternal reminder that some powers move silently but no less decisively. To worship him was to acknowledge that not all divinity shouts. Sometimes it whispers in the dark, measuring out existence one luminous phase at a time. To the people of Mesopotamia, the moon was never just a silent observer in the night sky. It was the heartbeat of their world, a celestial clock whose rhythms dictated the ebb and flow of life itself. Nanna Sin's luminous presence wasn't merely decorative. It was the very fabric of their understanding of time, fate, and the delicate balance between endings and beginnings. Each phase of the moon told a story, the slender crescent a promise, the full moon a triumph, the waning darkness a temporary surrender, all mirroring the endless cycles of sowing and reaping that sustained their civilization. This wasn't accidental symbolism. In a land cradled between the Tigris and Euphrates, where floods could bring both ruin and fertility, the moon's predictable waxing and waning offered a rare certainty. Farmers planted by its light, knowing the barley moon signaled the start of the growing season, while the hidden moon warned of the arid months ahead. But Nanna Sin's connection to agriculture ran deeper than mere timing. His mythos intertwined with the fate of crops. His disappearance during the new moon paralleled the descent of seeds into the earth, and his re-emergence echoed the first green shoots breaking through the soil. Temple hymns praised him as the herdsman of the black-headed people, a divine shepherd guiding both flocks and harvests through the seasons. Yet the moon's phases also held darker, more enigmatic meanings. When Nanna Sin's light dimmed, it wasn't just an astronomical event, it was an omen, a message from the gods written in celestial ink. Mesopotamian astrologers meticulously recorded lunar eclipses, interpreting them as portents of royal deaths, invasions, or droughts. A blood moon might herald the anger of the gods, while an unusually bright full moon could signal Nanna Sin's favor, promising bounty. These weren't superstitions. They were part of a sophisticated cosmology where heaven and earth spoke in a language of light and shadow. The famous Enuma Enlil, a series of 70 tablets, served as a manual for decoding these lunar messages, blending astronomy with divine will. Perhaps most strikingly, the moon embodied the Mesopotamian view of existence itself, not as a linear march but as an endless spiral of renewal. Unlike solar deities who often represented unchanging power, Nanna Sin's cyclical nature mirrored their belief in regeneration. The afterlife wasn't a final destination but a temporary abode, much like the moon's monthly journey through the underworld before its rebirth. Even his sacred number, 30, reflected this. The days of the lunar month became a template for rituals, contracts, and mourning periods, structuring human life around celestial time. Artifacts from Ur reveal how deeply this symbolism permeated daily life. Cylinder seals depict Nanna Sin's crescent cradling a sun disk, not as rivals but as partners in cosmic harmony. Prayers inscribed on clay tablets invoke him as the lamp of the gods, a title that captures his dual role as both illuminator and oracle. His light didn't just reveal the physical world, it unveiled the hidden threads of destiny woven into the very fabric of the night. In the end, to stand beneath Nanna Sin's glow was to stand at the crossroads of time itself. His waxing light promised growth, his waning shadow whispered of sacrifice, and his return guaranteed continuity, a truth as vital to ancient Mesopotamians as the rivers that nourished their fields. The moon wasn't just a symbol of their world, it was the rhythm by which they lived, worshipped, and understood their place in the universe. Rising from the Mesopotamian plains like a stairway to the stars, the great Ziggurat of Ur stood as Nanna Sin's earthly throne, a monument so awe-inspiring that even its ruins whisper of celestial ambition. Built around 2100 years before the Common Era by King Ur-Nammu, this towering tiered structure wasn't just a temple, it was a physical manifestation of the bond between humanity and the divine. Each of its 3 colossal levels, painted in sacred colors, black for the underworld, red for the living world, and white for the heavens, mimicked the moon god's journey through cosmic realms. At the summit, bathed in perpetual moonlight, a shrine shimmered with lapis lazuli and gold, where priests performed rituals believed to sustain the universe itself. The ziggurat's very design echoed Nanna Sin's dual nature. Its staircases didn't just ascend, they spiraled, mirroring the moon's cyclical path across the sky. Pilgrims who climbed them didn't walk in straight lines, they followed the same winding course as celestial bodies, enacting a sacred dance between earth and heaven. At the base, storerooms overflowed with offerings, not gold or weapons, but butter, cheese, and milk. These dairy products, often dismissed as humble, held profound meaning. Just as the moon governed the tides of animal fertility and lactation cycles, Nanna-Sin's worshippers offered the fruits of this rhythm back to him, a divine reciprocity woven into daily life. Among the temple's most enigmatic rites was the sacred marriage ceremony. Once a year, during the full moon closest to the spring equinox, the high priestess would ascend to the summit shrine. There, she embodied Ningal, Nanna-Sin's divine consort, in a ritual that blurred the lines between myth and reality. Cuneiform tablets describe the event in vivid detail, incantations calling the god to descend from his celestial boat, the sharing of a ritual bed, and the presentation of a ceremonial meal. This wasn't mere pageantry, it was a cosmic recharge, a reaffirmation that the bond between deity and humanity could renew the land's fertility. When the priestess emerged at dawn, the crowd below didn't see a mortal woman. They saw the moon's radiance made flesh, a living bridge between worlds. But the Ziggurat's magic wasn't reserved for grand spectacles. Every new moon, when Nanna-Sin's light vanished, priests performed the lamentation of the disappearing god, beating their chests and scattering ashes to mimic the chaos of a world without lunar order. Only when the crescent reappeared would they break into hymns of joy, offering silver statues of bulls, symbols of both celestial and earthly abundance. Even the temple's construction held hidden meaning. Bricks stamped with Ur-Nammu's name weren't just royal boasts, they contained flecks of powdered lapis, mirroring the starry sky Nanna-Sin traversed each night. What's remarkable is how these rituals transcended time. Centuries after Ur's political power faded, travelers still left offerings at the Ziggurat's base. Babylonian kings repaired its walls not out of nostalgia, but because they understood its enduring power. To stand before it was to stand at the axis of the universe, where time moved in lunar loops, where heaven bent low enough to touch, and where a god who governed the cosmos still listened to the whispers of those who remembered his name. The stones themselves seemed to pulse with that promise, that as long as the moon rose, so too would humanity's oldest questions find answers in its light. In the silent language of symbols, Nanna-Sin spoke loudest. His iconography wasn't just art, it was a celestial code, each element revealing facets of his divine power. Take his most recognizable emblem, the crescent moon crown, often depicted horizontally like a boat sailing the night sky. This wasn't mere decoration. On cylinder seals and temple walls, the crescent's horns cradled a radiant disk, symbolizing his role as the father of the sun, who birthed the solar deity Shamash each dawn. The curve mirrored the shape of a bull's horns, tying him to fertility, while its sharp edges evoked the sickle used to harvest both crops and human fates. Few artifacts capture this symbolism more vividly than the Ur-Nammu stele, where Nanna-Sin stands regal, his crescent crown gleaming. But look closer, flanking him are bulls, their muscular forms embodying the raw power he channeled. In Mesopotamia, bulls weren't just beasts of burden, they were living metaphors. Their strength mirrored the god's authority, their role in plowing fields connected to his agricultural blessings, and their bellowing calls echoed the thunder of his father Enlil's storms. Even the bull's curved horns repeated the crescent motif, creating a visual chorus of divine harmony. Then there's the boat. Unlike solar gods who rode chariots, Nanna-Sin glided across the heavens in a crescent-shaped bark, a detail etched onto countless boundary stones. This vessel wasn't just transportation, it was a microcosm of his nightly journey through the celestial river. Babylonian star maps show him piloting this boat through the sea of the sky, navigating constellations as if they were ports of call. The imagery held profound meaning. Just as the moon's reflection dances on water, Nanna-Sin's bark connected the celestial and earthly realms, ferrying prayers upward and blessings downward. What's striking is how these symbols transcended time. When Assyrian kings adopted the crescent as their royal emblem millennia later, they weren't just borrowing an image, they were invoking Nanna Sin's enduring authority. Even his sacred number, 30, manifested visually. On temple facades, 30 perforations might represent the days of the lunar cycle, while ritual objects were often grouped in multiples of 30. Every artistic choice carried theological weight, transforming stone and clay into a dialogue between mortals and the cosmos. Perhaps the most poignant example comes from Ur's royal cemetery, where a lyre decorated with a golden bull's head was found beside a queen's skeleton. The bull's eyes, crafted from lapis lazuli, stared upward as if gazing at the moon, a silent testament to how deeply Nanna Sin's iconography permeated life and death. To see these symbols was to participate in a sacred language, one where a crescent wasn't just a shape, but a gateway to understanding time, power, and the divine order that pulsed beneath the surface of the visible world. Behind every great deity stands a family whose bonds shape the cosmos, and for Nanna Sin, that foundation was his radiant union with Ningal, the great lady of reeds. More than just a consort, Ningal embodied the lush marshlands of southern Mesopotamia, where life sprang from the meeting of water and earth. Their marriage wasn't merely symbolic, it was a cosmic partnership, weaving together the rhythms of the moon and the fertility of the land. When hymns praised Ningal as the one who makes the barley grow tall, they weren't just flattering a goddess, they were acknowledging the inseparable link between her wetlands and Nanna Sin's lunar cycles. Together, they represented the perfect balance, his light guiding the night, her reeds sheltering the dawn. Their children carried this legacy into every corner of the divine realm. Most famous was their daughter Inanna, the tempestuous goddess of love and war, whose fiery ambition would reshape Mesopotamian mythology. But Inanna's contradictions, her capacity for both creation and destruction, made perfect sense when viewed through her parents' duality. From Nanna Sin, she inherited celestial authority and the weight of divine judgment. From Ningal, she gained an earthy passion, a connection to the raw power of nature. This lineage explains why Inanna's myths often blur boundaries. She's both the life-giving morning star and the warrior who brings chaos to the battlefield. Nowhere is this familial influence clearer than in the epic Inanna's descent to the underworld. When Inanna resolves to challenge her sister Ereshkigal's dominion over the dead, she doesn't act alone. She strategically dons the sacred decrees of power linked to her father's lunar wisdom. As she passes through each underworld gate, stripped of her symbols one by one, the story echoes Nanna Sin's own mythic journey into darkness and rebirth. Even the resolution hinges on family. When no god dares rescue Inanna, it's Ningal who orchestrates her daughter's return, weeping and pleading until the gods relent. The tale becomes more than an adventure. It's a testament to how deeply parental bonds could alter fate itself. Beyond Inanna, Nanna Sin and Ningal's divine lineage extended to Utu, the sun god, and Ishkur, the storm deity, each child embodying a facet of their parents' combined powers. Utu's daily journey across the sky mirrored his father's nightly path, while Ishkur's rains mirrored Ningal's life-giving marshes. Even minor offspring like the fire god Nuska played roles in temple rituals, keeping the family's influence alive in daily worship. This wasn't just a divine household, it was a network of interconnected forces that shaped everything from harvests to royal coronations. Artifacts from Ur reveal how these relationships permeated worship. A terracotta plaque shows Ningal breastfeeding Inanna beneath a crescent moon, a tender scene that also symbolized the transfer of divine authority. Prayers invoked the couple together, like one hymn pleading, "Ningal, soften your husband's heart for me," acknowledging her role as mediator between Nanna Sin's stern justice and mortal need. Their union proved that even gods relied on partnership, that the moon's cold light needed the warmth of the earth to sustain life. In the end, Nanna Sin's family wasn't just a backdrop to his mythos. It was the lens through which Mesopotamia understood the universe's interconnectedness. When a farmer watched the moon rise over the reeds, he didn't see separate forces. He saw a divine marriage unfolding in real time, a celestial dance that made his world possible. The gods, like the elements they governed, were never truly alone. Every month, as the moon's light waned to darkness, the people of Mesopotamia didn't just witness an astronomical event. They saw a god embarking on a sacred journey. The myth of Nanna Sin's voyage to Nippur wasn't merely a story. It was a celestial allegory, a divine performance that explained the moon's mysterious monthly disappearance and triumphant return. Picture this: aboard his crescent-shaped barge, gleaming like polished silver against the black river of the night sky, Nanna Sin set forth from Ur toward Nippur, the holy city of his father Enlil. His cargo, not treasures or weapons, but the most precious offerings of all butter, honey, and the first fruits of the harvest, each item pulsing with symbolic meaning. This journey was no casual visit. Ancient texts describe it as a ritual of cosmic maintenance, a duty that upheld the very balance of the universe. As the barge drifted through the celestial waters, Nanna Sin's absence from the night sky mirrored the moon's invisible phase, those 3 days when it vanished from view. But this wasn't a time of emptiness. It was a period of hidden activity, where the god's pilgrimage to his father's temple renewed the divine order. When he presented his gifts to Enlil, it wasn't just filial piety, it was a transaction of power. The moon god's offerings secured blessings for the month ahead, rain for crops, justice for kings, and protection against chaos. The rituals performed in Ur during this time brought the myth to life. Priests donned ritual garments embroidered with crescent moons, reenacting the god's journey through chants and processions. At the temple's sacred quay, a ceremonial barge laden with real offerings was set afloat, its course mirroring the celestial voyage. Most strikingly, these rites coincided with the new moon, when Mesopotamians believed the gates between worlds stood open. The people's anxiety during these moonless nights wasn't superstition. It was the visceral understanding that without Nanna Sin's successful mission, the natural order might fracture. Archaeology breathes life into these beliefs. A broken cylinder seal from Nippur shows a god, likely Nanna Sin, kneeling before Enlil's dais, a vessel of offerings raised in supplication. The imagery echoes hymns praising the moon god as the faithful son who extinguishes his light to honor his father. Even the barge itself held deeper meaning. Unlike the sun god's chariot, which raced across the sky, Nanna Sin's boat moved with deliberate slowness, reflecting the moon's gradual phases. The Mesopotamians saw this as proof of his meticulous nature, a deity who measured time not in days but in careful, deliberate cycles. What's profound is how this myth transcended storytelling. The lunar calendar, used for agriculture and royal decrees, was divided into months marked by Nanna Sin's return as the crescent moon reappeared. Contracts were dated to his phases, with debts often due on the full moon when his light, and presumably his favor, peaked. The myth wasn't just poetry, it was the heartbeat of civilization, a rhythm as vital as the Tigris's floods. When the moon finally reappeared, thin as a fingernail paring, the relief was palpable: cosmic order restored, the divine sun home once more, his gifts accepted, and the world safe for another cycle. This wasn't passive observation, it was active participation in the universe's upkeep. Every prayer chanted during the moon's absence, every offering placed in temple courtyards was a thread in the fabric of reality. To the Mesopotamians, Nanna Sin's journey wasn't just something to believe in, it was something to help happen, a communal effort to keep the machinery of the cosmos turning. The night sky wasn't a distant spectacle, it was a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest hope, that even in darkness the light would always find its way back. While the moon's glow often symbolized guidance and wisdom, its darkest phase revealed Nanna Sin's most solemn duty, a role not of light but of judgment. When the crescent vanished from the sky, Mesopotamians believed their god descended into the underworld, not as a visitor but as a sovereign. Texts from the city of Ur depict him seated beside Ereshkigal, the formidable queen of the dead, their twin thrones casting long shadows over the realm of departed souls. Here, in the silent halls of the netherworld, Nanna Sin's lunar wisdom took on a chilling clarity. He wasn't merely observing, he was weighing lives, measuring sins against the cosmic scales his celestial rhythms embodied. One haunting ritual tablet from Sippar describes this process in eerie detail. As spirits shuffled forward, Nanna Sin consulted the Tablet of Moonlight, a celestial ledger recording every mortal's deed. The moon's phases became metaphors for fate. Those who lived virtuously were granted rebirth, like the waxing crescent returning to the sky. But the wicked faced eternal hunger, their punishments etched in cuneiform as sharply as the god's sickle-shaped crown. What's striking is how this mirrored earthly justice. Just as Mesopotamian judges relied on lunar calendars to set court dates, Nanna Sin's underworld court operated on cosmic time, his verdicts synchronized with the moon's disappearance. The dynamic between Nanna Sin and Ereshkigal added layers to this underworld partnership. While Ereshkigal ruled with the finality of death itself, Nanna Sin brought cyclical nuance. A fragmentary hymn from Nippur captures their exchange. She demands permanence for the damned. He insists even shadows must retreat before the returning moon. Their debates weren't conflicts, they were balancing acts, echoing the tension between endless night and the certainty of dawn. This duality manifested in funeral rites, where mourners placed silver crescent amulets on the deceased, symbolizing a plea for Nanna Sin's mercy during their trial below. Perhaps the most revealing evidence comes from the Death of Gilgamesh epic. When the legendary king stands before the divine judges, it's Nanna Sin who speaks first, measuring his deeds against the months he was given. The moon god's verdict isn't about punishment, it's about completion, assessing whether a life fulfilled its destined seasons. This wasn't arbitrary, it reflected the Mesopotamian belief that time itself was a divine gift portioned out in lunar cycles. To stand before Nanna Sin was to have one's entire existence weighed against the celestial clock he governed. Artifacts reinforce this connection. A recently deciphered cylinder seal shows the god holding a rope tied to two spirits, one rising toward stars, the other sinking into darkness. The rope isn't a restraint, it's a measuring line, echoing the cords priests used to calculate lunar intervals. Even in death, humanity remained bound to the rhythms Nanna Sin embodied. His role as judge didn't contradict his celestial nature. It completed it, proving that light and darkness weren't opposites, but partners in the endless dance of existence. The moon's vanishing act was never truly an absence. It was a god at work elsewhere, ensuring that even in the underworld, nothing escaped the ordered passage of time. To track time in Mesopotamia wasn't just about counting days, it was about interpreting the divine. Nanna Sin's ever-changing face became humanity's first clock, his phases so precisely observed that they birthed the lunar calendar, a system so effective it still echoes in modern timekeeping. Each month began not at a bureaucrat's decree, but at the moment the first silver crescent reappeared after darkness, heralding Nanna Sin's return from his underworld journey. Priests perched atop ziggurats would scan the twilight, and when they spotted that slender curve, messengers raced through cities to announce the new month. This wasn't mere tradition, it was sacred synchronization, aligning human activity with cosmic will. The calendar's genius lay in its adaptability. Unlike rigid solar systems, the lunar month's 29 to 30-day rhythm mirrored natural cycles, tides, menstruation, even animal behavior. Farmers planted barley as the moon waxed, trusting its growing light would pull crops upward. Kings timed military campaigns to avoid the hidden moon, when Nanna Sin's absence was seen as an omen of vulnerability. But the true masterpiece was how Mesopotamians reconciled the lunar year's 11-day discrepancy with the solar cycle. Their solution, periodic intercalary months, added by priest astronomers when the seasons began drifting. A tablet from Ur records one such adjustment. In the year the barley harvest came too soon, we added a second month of the god. Central to this system were the three crowns, the new, full, and waning moons, each a divine aspect of Nanna Sin's power. The new moon, called Arahu, was a time of purification. Temples performed rituals to wipe away the sins of the past month. The full moon, Shappatu, later evolving into the Hebrew Sabbath, brought festivals where Ningal's fertility rites intertwined with her husband's radiant climax. Meanwhile, the waning moon, Babulu, signaled introspection, a period to settle debts and seek forgiveness before the cycle renewed. These phases weren't arbitrary divisions, they were theological anchors structuring everything from tax collection to temple offerings. What's remarkable is how deeply astronomy intertwined with daily life. The Enuma Anu Enlil, a collection of 70 celestial omens, treated lunar eclipses as divine text. One entry warns, if the moon disappears on the 14th day and Saturn is present, the king will die. Such predictions weren't superstition, they were data science with centuries of observations revealing patterns. When an eclipse coincided with a political crisis often enough, it became codified as prophecy. Even the moon's color held meaning. A red Nanna Sin meant war, while a bright white one promised peace. The lunar calendar's legacy endures, our 7-day week, a Mesopotamian innovation, each day tied to a celestial body, with Monday originally dedicated to Sin. The very word month shares roots with moon across countless languages, but perhaps the most profound testament lies in a broken tablet from Babylon where a scribe noted, "The moon is the measure of all things." In tracking Nanna Sin's journey, they weren't just marking time, they were reading the heartbeat of the universe itself, one luminous phase at a time. When the Sumerian city-states faded into history, Nanna Sin didn't vanish with them, he transformed. Under the Akkadians and later Babylonians, the moon god shed his Sumerian name, emerging as Sin, a deity whose influence stretched far beyond Ur's ziggurats. Nowhere was this more evident than in Harran, a bustling trade hub where his temple became a beacon of political and spiritual power. Unlike Ur's coastal marshes, Harran's arid plains made the moon's cool light a lifeline, and Sin's role here reflected that harsh beauty. His temple, the Eclipses, wasn't just a copy of Ur's, it was a statement, its design echoing the celestial pathways the god traveled each night. Harran's Sin was both familiar and radically new. He retained Nanna Sin's lunar cycles and judicial authority, but his Akkadian incarnation emphasized something darker, omens. A cuneiform tablet from the city records how priests tracked every eclipse, every halo around the moon as messages from Sin. When the moon turned the color of burnt copper, it wasn't just an atmospheric quirk, it was a direct warning to kings. The Assyrian ruler Esarhaddon once halted a military campaign after such an omen, his scribes writing, "Sin's face was clothed in storm, we dared not provoke his wrath." This wasn't superstition, it was statecraft with the moon god's moods dictating empire's fates. What cemented Sin's prominence in Harran was its strategic role as the last holdout of Mesopotamian moon worship. While Babylon shifted focus to Marduk, Harran's priests clung to Sin's legacy, becoming custodians of ancient astronomical knowledge. When the Assyrian king Ashurbanipal sought to legitimize his rule, he didn't just pay lip service, he embarked on a pilgrimage to Harran, restoring Sin's temple and inscribing his deeds on silver tablets shaped like crescent moons. One proclamation reads, "I grasped the hem of Sin's robe and he gave me the scepter of the north." The symbolism was deliberate. By tying his reign to the moon god's timeless authority, Ashurbanipal framed himself as both innovator and tradition keeper. The Assyrians' reverence for Sin reached its peak with their queen mothers. Unlike in Ur, where priestesses led rituals, Harran's royal women became Sin's earthly intermediaries. Nakia, mother of Esarhaddon, funded the temple's expansion, commissioning statues of herself offering prayers to the moon god. A surviving relief shows her crowned with a miniature crescent, a visual claim to divine favor. This wasn't mere piety, it was a power play using Sin's prestige to elevate her son's controversial reign. Harran's most astonishing legacy, though, was its endurance. Long after Assyria fell, the Temple of Sin remained active, a living fossil of Mesopotamian belief. Nabonidus, Babylon's last king, shocked his subjects by abandoning Marduk's cult to restore Harran's moon worship, even naming his daughter Enlil and Ninanna after Sin's Sumerian title. His inscriptions reveal a near obsession. Sin's radiance guided me when all other gods fell silent. In a world shifting toward solar deities, Harran became the moon's final sanctuary, its rituals preserving knowledge that would later influence Arabic astronomy. The city's twilight years hold one final revelation. When Muslim chroniclers described Harran's Sabians in the 9th century, they noted these star worshippers still prayed to the moon, their rituals echoing hymns first sung in Ur over 3,000 years earlier. Sin's light, it seemed, refused to fade, proof that some gods outlive even the civilizations that birthed them. History remembers Nabonidus as the ruler who gambled an empire on the moon's glow. When this last king of Babylon ascended the throne in 556 before the Common Era, he inherited a realm where Marduk, patron god of Babylon, stood unchallenged. Temples across the land echoed with hymns praising Marduk's victory over chaos, his supremacy cemented over centuries. Yet within years, Nabonidus upended this sacred order, not through conquest but by resurrecting the ancient cult of Sin, a decision that would ripple through politics, religion, and ultimately the fall of Babylon itself. The king's obsession wasn't subtle. While previous rulers paid token homage to other deities, Nabonidus bypassed Babylon entirely, restoring Harran's moon temple with fanatical precision. His inscriptions boast of uncovering forgotten foundations and installing his daughter Enlil and Ninanna as high priestess, a name deliberately echoing Sin's Sumerian title. Most provocatively, he altered the Akitu festival, Babylon's most sacred rite, inserting Sin where Marduk once stood. A clay tablet from his reign records the outrage. The priests of Esagil tore their garments when the crescent standard entered before the golden statue of Marduk. This wasn't just religious reform, it was a divine coup. Why risk such upheaval? Nabonidus framed himself as a restorer of forgotten truths. In the Harran stele, he claims Sin appeared to him in a dream, declaring, "The gods of Babylon have abandoned it, but I remain." The moon god's cyclical nature offered what Marduk's solar-focused cult couldn't: a theology of return and renewal, perfect for a king seeking legitimacy. Yet there were darker calculations. Harran sat strategically near Assyrian remnants, and by championing Sin, Nabonidus courted their loyalty. His mother Adad-Gupi, an Assyrian priestess, had spent decades preserving moon worship. Now her son wielded it as both spiritual weapon and political tool. The backlash was swift. Babylon's priesthood, whose power hinged on Marduk's monopoly, circulated pamphlets branding Nabonidus a heretic. One prophetic text, the verse account, accuses him of setting the rituals aside like empty jars, his obsession with Sin making him neglect the capital for a decade. Modern archaeology confirms this. While Nabonidus camped in Arabian Tama, dated tablets show Babylonian bureaucrats pleading for royal decisions, requests that went unanswered as the king searched for celestial omens in desert skies. Enter Cyrus the Great. The Persian conqueror didn't just exploit Babylon's instability, he weaponized Nabonidus's unorthodoxy. Cyrus's famous cylinder positions himself as Marduk's chosen restorer, summoned by the god to return order. Persian spies likely stoked priestly resentment, painting Nabonidus as a madman who honored a god no one knew. When Cyrus's armies marched in 539, Babylon's gates reportedly opened without resistance, the priesthood effectively choosing a foreigner over their own apostate king. The irony is profound. Nabonidus's revival of sin worship preserved Mesopotamian traditions that might have otherwise vanished. His excavations at Ur uncovered artifacts of Nanna Sin's ancient cult, including the famous stele of Ur-Nammu, which he reverently reburied. Yet in trying to resurrect the past, he shattered his present. The moon god who outlasted empires became, in this final act, the unwitting catalyst for Babylon's fall, a reminder that even divine light casts shadows. The moon's silver glow has inspired deities across civilizations, yet no two lunar gods mirror each other perfectly. Take Thoth, Egypt's ibis-headed sage of the moon. Like Nanna Sin, he governed wisdom and timekeeping, his crescent resembling the curved beak of his sacred bird. But where Nanna Sin's rhythms dictated agriculture and underworld judgments, Thoth's lunar phases measured spells in funerary texts, his light guiding scribes more than farmers. A papyrus from Thebes captures this contrast. While Sumerian priests tracked lunar omens for harvests, Egyptian healers invoked Thoth to calculate dosages of moonlight-steeped medicines. Both gods illuminated their cultures, but one ruled cyclical fate, the other sacred science. Then there's Chandra, the Hindu moon deity who rides a silver chariot pulled by antelopes, a far cry from Nanna Sin's celestial barge. They share ties to fertility. Chandra's waxing light nourishes medicinal herbs just as Nanna Sin's phases governed Mesopotamian crops. Yet Chandra's mythology takes a darker turn. When he marries 27 daughters of the stars representing lunar mansions, his favoritism toward one triggers a curse that causes his monthly decay, a poetic explanation for the waning moon. Unlike Nanna Sin's orderly judicial disappearances, Chandra's cycles stem from divine drama, reflecting Hinduism's embrace of cosmic imperfections. A Vedic hymn even warns that the moon withers from love's excess, a stark departure from Mesopotamia's precise lunar bureaucracy. Artemis presents the sharpest contrast. The Greek huntress may carry a crescent crown like Nanna Sin, but her moonlight pierces forests rather than clay tablets. Where Mesopotamians saw a bearded god measuring lifetimes, Greeks envisioned a virgin archer whose silver arrows spared neither beast nor man. Both deities protected flocks, Nanna Sin as a celestial shepherd, Artemis as a predator whispering to wolves. But Artemis's moon is a torch illuminating wild places beyond human control, while Nanna Sin's glow was a ledger recording the orderly passage of days. A Spartan ritual encapsulates this. Girls danced as she-bears under Artemis's full moon, embracing untamed femininity, while Ur's priestesses performed measured laments during Nanna Sin's vanishings. What unites them all is the moon's dual nature, ruthless yet renewing. Thoth's light could reveal truth or conceal it in shadow. Chandra's beauty hid a cursed marriage. Artemis's arrows brought death and healing in equal measure, and Nanna Sin, his cyclical absences reminded Mesopotamia that even divine justice must occasionally retreat so renewal can begin. The moon's gods wear different masks, but behind them all pulses the same celestial truth, that light and darkness aren't opposites but partners in an eternal dance. In the dim light of a healer's chamber, where the air smelled of crushed herbs and burnt incense, the moon's phases weren't just observed, they were harnessed. Nanna Sin's influence extended far beyond temples and ziggurats. It seeped into the very art of healing, where his rhythms dictated the ebb and flow of life's fluids. Cuneiform tablets from Ashur and Nineveh reveal a startling truth. Mesopotamian physicians didn't just treat illness, they timed it. A prescription for a fever might instruct the patient to drink a potion when the moon is 2 fingers thick, while salves for inflammation were applied only during the waning crescent, as if the retreating light could pull swelling down with it. One particularly vivid incantation tablet shows how deeply the moon god was woven into medical rituals. To cure a patient plagued by nightmares, a healer would wait for the first crescent to appear, then chant, "Nanna Sin, cleanser of the night, wash this evil away as you wash the darkness from your face." The remedy, a paste of dates and goat's milk, ingredients associated with the moon's nurturing side, applied to the forehead while facing Ur's direction. What seems like superstition was rooted in keen observation. These healers noticed that epileptic seizures often spiked during full moons, that wounds bled more freely under its light, and that certain herbs plucked at specific lunar phases held greater potency. Their treatments weren't guesses, they were early experiments in chronobiology, attuning the body's rhythms to the cosmos. The connection between Nanna Sin and bodily fluids wasn't metaphorical. A diagnostic manual from Babylon categorizes ailments by their tides. Conditions like edema or excessive menstrual flow fell under the moon's domain. One spell for stopping hemorrhage invokes the god directly. As you gather the waters and release them, O sin, let this blood know its season. Even the famous Diagnostic Handbook of Esagil Kinoply, a groundbreaking medical text, links certain symptoms to lunar eclipses, interpreting them as celestial imbalances requiring divine intervention. But the most fascinating evidence comes from a set of midwifery tablets. During childbirth, women were given a drink called Nanna's Cup, a mixture of beer, honey, and crushed lapis lazuli meant to mimic the moon's cool radiance. The timing was precise. If labor began during the new moon, the potion was withheld until the first sliver appeared, symbolizing the child's safe emergence into the world. These rituals reveal a profound understanding of cycles, not just in the sky, but in the human body, where blood, bile, and breath followed rhythms as dependable as the tides. The moon's association with wisdom also played a role. Pharmacists preparing remedies for mental confusion often added silver flakes to their mixtures, a nod to Nanna Sin's metallic glow. A tablet from Uruk describes a treatment for moon-touched madness, involving a poultice of juniper and crushed pearls, applied while reciting the god's 42 sacred names. Whether these methods worked matters less than what they reveal. A worldview where illness wasn't random, but a disruption in the cosmic order, one only the moon god's measured light could restore. In the end, these incantations and treatments weren't just medicine. They were poetry written on the body, verses composed in pulse and phlegm, each syllable synchronized to the silent turning of the heavens. To invoke Nanna Sin wasn't to abandon reason. It was to acknowledge that the line between science and the sacred, between waxing moons and healing wounds, was thinner than a sliver of crescent light. Among Nanna Sin's most enigmatic gifts was the celestial bull he bestowed upon his daughter Inanna, a creature of such cosmic power that its very presence could shake the foundations of the earth. This wasn't just any beast. The bull of heaven was a force of divine retribution, its horns gleaming like crescent moons, its breath capable of withering crops or breathing life into barren fields. When Inanna demanded the bull as revenge against Gilgamesh for spurning her advances, Nanna Sin's compliance sparked a chain of events that would ripple through myth and history alike. But was this myth merely a dramatic tale of gods and heroes, or did it encode something far deeper? An astronomical phenomenon, or perhaps even the tensions simmering between rival city-states? Ancient texts describe the bull's descent in vivid detail. Tablet 6 of the Epic of Gilgamesh paints a harrowing scene. The beast's first bellow cracks open the earth, swallowing hundreds of Uruk's citizens, while its second roar drains the Euphrates itself. Such cataclysmic imagery has led scholars to wonder if this story memorializes a real disaster, a comet streaking across the night sky perhaps, or a devastating drought. The bull's association with Nanna Sin is telling. As a lunar deity linked to fertility and timekeeping, his gift of the bull may symbolize the moon's influence over Taurus, the constellation long tied to agriculture in Mesopotamian astrology. Could the myth be an allegory for a celestial event where the moon's alignment with Taurus brought famine or flooding, interpreted as the bull's wrath? Yet there's another layer, one rooted in earthly politics. Inanna's temple in Uruk and Nanna Sin's in Ur were centers of rival power, their priesthoods vying for influence. By unleashing the bull on Gilgamesh, Inanna's favored king, Nanna Sin might have been flexing divine authority, a celestial rebuke to Uruk's growing dominance. The bull's eventual slaying by Gilgamesh and Enkidu could symbolize Uruk's defiance of Ur's hegemony, a mythic retelling of real-world struggles over trade routes or water rights. A fragmentary hymn from Lhasa hints at this tension, praising Nanna Sin for holding the reins of the bull, a metaphor for restraining rival cities' ambitions. The bull's dual nature, both life-giver and destroyer, mirrors Nanna Sin's own contradictions. As a symbol of fertility, it echoed his role in ensuring bountiful harvests. As a weapon, it reflected his capacity for judgment. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu eventually tear the beast apart, its horns are repurposed as vessels for sacred oil, a transformation that speaks to Mesopotamian beliefs about divine gifts. Even in destruction, there's renewal. The myth doesn't just entertain, it crystallizes the delicate balance between human ambition and the gods' inscrutable will, a lesson as timeless as the moon cycles themselves. When the moon's glow turned to blood or vanished entirely from the sky, Mesopotamia didn't see an astronomical event, they witnessed a god's fury made visible. Lunar eclipses were Nanna Sin's most terrifying language, moments when the normally measured deity peeled back his serene facade to reveal divine displeasure. The Enuma Anu Enlil tablets, Mesopotamia's celestial playbook, spelled out the horrors these omens foretold. If the moon is eclipsed on the 14th day and turns dark as lapis, the king will die within 6 months. This wasn't metaphor, it was a codex of catastrophe where the moon's suffering mirrored impending earthly chaos. The panic eclipses ignited was visceral. Across cities, priests scrambled to perform Nambabai rituals, complex ceremonies designed to undo the omen before its doom could take root. A tablet from Nineveh details the steps. Priests fashioned wax replicas of eclipsed moons, then melted them over fires while chanting, "As this wax returns to nothing, so too shall sin's anger dissolve." Commoners buried clay crescents at crossroads, hoping to redirect the gods' wrath away from their homes. Even the king wasn't exempt, he'd temporarily abdicate, replaced by a substitute king who'd bear the eclipse's deadly consequences. One chilling letter from Mari records a stand in ruler's fate. After a 2-month reign, he and his queen were quietly sacrificed, their bodies buried with royal honors to appease Nanna Sin's hunger for justice. What made these rituals so urgent was their precision. Omens differentiated between total and partial eclipses, between those tinged copper versus those veiled in gray smoke. A dimmed moon might herald crop failure, but one that disappeared completely signaled dynastic collapse. The famous Eclipse of Ur in 1954 before the Common Era was blamed for the city's abrupt loss of prominence, a punishment, scribes claimed, for its rulers neglecting Sin's temples. Astrologers tracked every detail, the eclipse's duration mapped onto years of coming strife, while its position in the sky pointed to which region would suffer. A fragment from Sippar notes, "When the moon died in the lion's jaw, Elam's armies grew bold," referencing both the constellation Leo and real historical invasions. Yet within this terror lay a paradox. The same God who could erase his light to warn of disaster was also the only one who could prevent it. Hymns pleaded with Nanna Sin to cover your children with your sickle's curve, transforming his crescent from a blade of judgment into a shield. Eclipse rituals weren't just about fear, they were acts of negotiation, humanity bargaining with the cosmos using the only currency gods understood: attention, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. When the moon's glow finally returned, it wasn't just light reappearing. It was mercy granted, a divine pact renewed for another cycle. When Alexander the Great marched into Mesopotamia in 331 before the Common Era, he didn't just bring armies, he brought an entire pantheon of Greek gods poised to eclipse the old order. Nanna Sin, once the unchallenged luminary of Ur and Harran, found his light dimming under the relentless advance of Hellenism. The conquerors didn't erase local gods outright. Instead, they performed a kind of celestial alchemy, merging deities into hybrid forms that often stripped away their original power. The moon god was no exception. To the Greeks, Nanna-Sin's quiet authority and cyclical nature seemed to mirror their own lunar goddess Selene, but the comparison flattened him into something far simpler, a gentle night watcher rather than the multifaceted judge, timekeeper, and underworld sovereign he had been. The process was gradual but inevitable. In cities like Babylon and Uruk, where Greek colonists settled thickly, priests began recasting Nanna-Sin as a lesser partner to Zeus or Apollo, his rituals reduced to quaint folklore. A clay tablet from Seleucia records a telling adaptation. A festival once honoring Sin's descent to the underworld was repurposed to celebrate Selene's love for the mortal Endymion. The shift wasn't just thematic, it was theological. Where Nanna-Sin's disappearances had symbolized judicial rigor and renewal, Selene's mythology framed the moon's phases as romantic longing, a softer, more humanized take that appealed to Greek sensibilities but eroded the god's gravitas. Yet Harran held out like a lunar fortress, nestled on trade routes just beyond the Hellenistic world's cultural chokehold. This ancient city became the last stronghold of unadulterated Sin worship. Here, priests still tracked eclipses as divine verdicts, kings sought oracles before waging war, and the temple's inner sanctum housed a relic believed to be the god's actual crescent, a curved slab of meteoric iron said to pulse with cold light during lunar events. Greek travelers like Strabo dismissed these practices as barbarous devotions, but their very persistence reveals a cultural trench warfare. A 2nd century coin minted in Harran shows the city's defiance. On one side, a Roman emperor's profile, on the other, Sin's crescent piercing a star, a declaration that the moon god still ruled here, imperial decrees be damned. What's fascinating is how Selene's cult, despite its official dominance, never quite matched Nanna-Sin's depth. The Greek goddess governed tides and madness, yes, but she lacked his ties to agriculture, jurisprudence, and the afterlife. A papyrus from Alexandria admits as much, complaining that Egyptian farmers clung to Chaldean moon rites for planting, despite Greek officials pushing Selene's festivals. The difference lay in their essence. Selene was poetry, Nanna-Sin had been protocol. One inspired sonnets, the other dictated when to sow barley and how long widows should mourn. By the 3rd century of the Common Era, even Harran's resistance was crumbling. The rise of Christianity painted moon worship as pagan obscurity, while Roman administrators viewed it as administrative inconvenience. The final blow came from an unexpected quarter, astronomy. As Greek science decoupled lunar cycles from divine will, Nanna-Sin's greatest power, his mastery over time became mere mathematics. Yet in fading, he achieved a kind of immortality. The crescent symbol, so intrinsic to his iconography, slipped into Islamic art, Byzantine amulets, and even medieval alchemy, where it denoted silver's mystical properties. The god himself might have vanished, but his light, refracted through centuries, still glimmers in places even Alexander couldn't conquer. The sands of Mesopotamia guarded Nanna-Sin's secrets for millennia, until the 19th century when shovels and brushes began to uncover what time had buried. Among the most dramatic rediscoveries was Leonard Woolley's excavation of Ur in the 1920s, where his team unearthed the great ziggurat's crumbling staircases, still bearing the faintest traces of the black, red, and white paint that once symbolized the moon god's cosmic domains. But it wasn't just architecture that emerged from the earth. In the royal cemetery, Woolley's hands trembled as he lifted a lyre adorned with a golden bull's head, its lapis lazuli eyes reflecting the same moonlight that had once guided ancient priests. Nearby, cylinder seals rolled out impressions of crescent moons and celestial barges, silent confirmations that Nanna-Sin's worship wasn't mere legend, but a living, breathing force that had shaped daily life. Deciphering cuneiform tablets transformed these artifacts from curiosities into a chorus of voices. When scholars like Henry Rawlinson cracked the script's code in the mid-19th century, Nanna Sin's hymns and rituals spilled forth like moonlight through a long-shuttered window. One tablet from Ur, now housed in the British Museum, recorded a priest's desperate plea during a lunar eclipse. "Great sin, why do you veil your face? Have we not offered butter and honey?" The emotional rawness of these texts shattered the stereotype of Mesopotamian religion as cold and bureaucratic. Here was a god who inspired both reverence and intimate dialogue. Equally revelatory were the discoveries at Harran, where Ottoman-era digs uncovered Sin's temple complex still littered with crescent-shaped votives. A particularly striking find was a broken stele showing Nabonidus, Babylon's last king, pressing his forehead to the moon god's symbol, physical proof of his controversial devotion. But the real breakthrough came when archaeologists matched these artifacts to cuneiform accounts of Sin's judgment rituals, revealing how lunar omens dictated everything from tax collection to treaty signings. A tablet fragment from Sippar even preserved an astronomer's log, noting how an eclipse predicted the fall of a dynasty with chilling accuracy. What makes these rediscoveries so electrifying is how they corrected centuries of misconception. Early European scholars, steeped in Greco-Roman perspectives, had dismissed Mesopotamian moon worship as primitive astrology, but the excavated evidence painted a different picture: precise astronomical records, sophisticated theological poetry, and a deity whose influence spanned agriculture, law, and medicine. Woolley himself marveled in his journals at the scientific piety of Nanna Sin's priests, who tracked lunar cycles with a rigor rivaling modern observatories. Perhaps the most poignant artifact wasn't gold or stone, but humble clay, a school tablet from Nippur where a child practiced writing Sin's name over and over, the cuneiform wedges wobbling with youthful clumsiness. This simple relic, more than any temple or treasure, revealed the moon god's true legacy, not as a distant celestial force, but as a presence woven into the fabric of ordinary lives. Every time a modern eye traces those ancient letters, Nanna Sin's light flickers back to life, bridging the gap between then and now with the quiet persistence of moonlight on weathered stone. You might think Nanna Sin faded into the dust of ancient history, but his legacy lingers in places you'd least expect, sometimes right under your nose. Take modern neo-pagan circles, where moon worship pulses with echoes of Mesopotamian reverence. Contemporary rituals often mirror those of Ur's priests, from tracking lunar phases for spellwork to leaving dairy offerings during the new moon. A Wiccan coven's drawing down the moon ceremony, where practitioners channel lunar energy, isn't so different from Ningal's priestesses embodying the goddess under Nanna Sin's glow. Even the ubiquitous triple moon symbol waxing, full, and waning feels like a distant cousin to the three crowns of Mesopotamian lunar rites. The connections aren't accidental. Many pagan traditions consciously draw from Sumerian roots, though few realize the bearded god of Ur was their original celestial timekeeper. Then there's fantasy literature, where Nanna Sin's influence slumbers in plain sight. Neil Gaiman's The Sandman gives us Dream's enigmatic sister, Delirium, who once mused about the old moon gods who measured time in silvery threads. It's a nod to Nanna Sin's role as the weaver of fate's tapestry. Even Elder Scrolls gamers unknowingly brush against his legacy. The Cogitate's lunar theology, where moon's massa and secunda dictate biology and destiny, mirrors Mesopotamian beliefs about lunar omens shaping mortal lives. These aren't mere coincidences, they're cultural fossils, fragments of a 4,000-year-old deity lodged in our collective imagination. Festivals, too, carry whispers of his worship. Ever attended a harvest moon celebration? Those glowing lanterns and nighttime feasts unconsciously echo Ur's Shapatu festivals, where farmers danced under the full moon to thank Sin for ripened barley. Japan's Tsukumi, with its moon-viewing dumplings, or Thailand's Loy Krathong, where floating baskets drift under lunar light, all tap into the same universal or Nanna Sin once commanded. There's something primal about gathering under the moon's gaze, a tradition so ancient it transcends continents and centuries. So here's a playful challenge. Next time you catch yourself checking the moon phase on your phone or pausing to admire its glow, ask, are you honoring Nanna Sin without even knowing it? That fleeting sense of wonder when the crescent first appears, the instinct to make a wish on a full moon, even the word lunatic, born from the Roman belief that moonlight stirred madness, all threads leading back to a god who taught humanity to read destiny in the night sky. His temples may lie in ruins, but his light still flickers in our rituals, stories, and silent moments of lunar awe. The moon hasn't forgotten its first worshippers. Perhaps it's time we remembered them too. Scholars digging through clay tablets and temple inscriptions have unearthed a fiery debate. Was Nanna Sin always the bearded moon god we envision, or does his image hide an even older truth? Some Assyriologists, like the controversial Julia Asher Grieve, point to early Sumerian artwork depicting lunar deities with androgynous features, paired with hymns that alternate between male and female pronouns. One tablet from Lagash addresses Nanna as the great cow who nourishes the heavens, while a broken stele shows a figure with both crescent horns and what might be breasts, fueling theories that the moon god absorbed traits from an earlier goddess, perhaps Ningal herself. Opponents like conservative scholar Mark Cohen counter that these are poetic metaphors or artistic conventions, noting that Mesopotamian texts consistently refer to Nanna Sin as father in legal and theological context. The debate isn't just academic. It reshapes how we understand the fluidity of divine gender in antiquity, where celestial forces might transcend human categories. Then there's the explosive question rippling through religious studies. Could Nanna Sin's worship have left fingerprints on the Bible? The parallels are tantalizing. The Book of Joshua describes the moon standing still at Gibon, mirroring Mesopotamian eclipse omens where a halted moon signaled divine intervention. Even Yahweh's name might whisper lunar connections. Some linguists trace its roots to early Semitic Yaria, meaning moon. Assyriologist Stephanie Daly argues that exiled Judeans in Babylon would have encountered Sin's cult, possibly blending his imagery with their own god. She cites Harran's enduring moon worship as late as the 6th century BCE, overlapping with Hebrew scribes recording their scriptures. But skeptics like William Hallow Fireback, Yahweh's solar and storm associations dominate the text, and lunar references are scarce. The truth may lie in the shadows. Perhaps Nanna Sin's legacy wasn't direct borrowing, but a subconscious echo, a celestial archetype whispering across cultures. What's clear is that these debates reveal more about modern biases than ancient beliefs. One camp sees gender binaries as fixed, another views them as fluid. Some scholars hunt for cultural borrowing where others see universal symbolism. Every broken tablet becomes a Rorschach test. Are we projecting our own questions onto the silent faces of long-forgotten gods? The only certainty is that Nanna Sin's light still has secrets to spill if we're willing to listen. Look up your moon sign in any astrology app today, and you're unwittingly consulting a celestial ledger first carved into clay under Nanna Sin's watch. The Mesopotamians didn't just observe the moon, they mapped its path into 28 segments called Manzolu, the earliest known lunar zodiac. These weren't the whimsical personality profiles of modern horoscopes, but a sacred geography of the night sky, each station marking where the moon rested like a traveler stopping at caravanserais. A cuneiform tablet from Babylon meticulously records these stops. When the moon stands in the crab, the king will face treachery. When it enters the scales, merchants shall prosper. Sound familiar? That's because these precise omens evolved into the Arabic Manazil system, which in turn seeded the lunar mansions of medieval astrology, the very foundation of today's moon sign interpretations. What's startling is how deeply Nanna Sin's priests understood lunar psychology. They didn't just track the moon's position, they correlated its phases with human behavior. A tablet from Nineveh warns that babies born under a swollen moon, full moon in Gemini, would grow up loquacious, while those under a thin crescent, new moon in Virgo, might be prone to meticulousness. Modern astrology still echoes this, with moon signs said to govern emotions and instincts. But where today's astrologers speak of Cancer moons being nurturing, the Mesopotamians saw Nanna Sin's boat passing through the Crab constellation and decreed it a time to strengthen family bonds or risk domestic strife. The difference: ancient astrologers treated these as divine commandments, not personality quirks. The real bombshell lies in how Arabic astronomers preserved this system. When Harran's moon worshippers fled Islamic conquest, they carried Nanna Sin's celestial maps to Baghdad's House of Wisdom. There, scholars like al-Biruni adapted the 28 manzolu into the Manazil al-Qamar, using them to predict weather and plan voyages. Persian astrologers then fused these with Indian nakshatras, creating the lunar mansion system that reached Europe via medieval trade routes. Check a traditional astrology chart today, and you'll find remnants. The seventh mansion, Al-Thuraya, corresponds to the Pleiades, the same star cluster Nanna Sin's priests called the Bristle, and associated with divine judgment. Yet something vital got lost in translation. Mesopotamian lunar omens were never solitary. They intertwined with planetary alignments and earthly signs. A Taurus moon might mean prosperity, but only if Jupiter was visible and the Euphrates ran high. Modern astrology's simplification mirrors how Greek thought flattened Nanna Sin into Selene. The nuance of celestial bureaucracy gave way to broad strokes. Perhaps that's why Mesopotamian eclipse warnings still outshine modern horoscopes in accuracy. They weren't about fate written in stars, but patterns decoded across generations, a language of risk and opportunity whispered by the moon god himself. So next time someone says your Pisces moon makes you dreamy, remember, that's not just new age fluff. It's the echo of a 4,000-year-old tradition where scribes huddled on ziggurats, tracking Nanna Sin's path through the stars, convinced that to understand the moon was to hold the key to the human heart. When the first crescent moon appeared after the spring equinox, the streets of Ur erupted in a symphony of silver and song. This was the Akitu festival, where Nanna Sin's divine presence wasn't just invoked, but paraded through the city in a crescendo of music, incense, and collective euphoria. For 12 days, the boundary between heaven and earth dissolved as priests carried the god's statue from the ziggurat's inner sanctum, his face veiled in gold foil, his crescent crown catching the torchlight. The procession moved to a hypnotic rhythm, drummers pounding goat-skin tambourines, lyre players plucking melodies tuned to the music of the spheres, a concept later borrowed by Greek philosophers. But this was no idle celebration. Every step had cosmic significance. The statue's route traced the moon's celestial path, pausing at 7 stations representing the heavenly bodies, a ritual reenactment of Nanna Sin's journey through the night sky. At each station, priests performed symbolic acts that blurred myth and reality. In the date palm grove, they anointed the statue with sacred cedar oil, echoing the god's mythical cleansing before entering Enlil's presence. By the riverside, they floated miniature silver boats filled with honey and barley offerings meant to secure smooth sailing for the moon's celestial barge. But the climax came at the House of the New Moon, a temporary shrine where the veil was lifted from the statue's face, revealing Nanna Sin's supposedly radiant visage to the crowd. Tablet fragments describe the moment with breathless awe. His countenance shone like the rising moon, and the people fell prostrate as if before the night sky itself. The feasting that followed turned Ur into a city of moonlit revelry. Brewers prepared a special lunar beer infused with anise and saffron, served in cups shaped like crescent moons. Butchers roasted bulls, their horns gilded to mimic the god's crown, while bakers shaped loaves into lunar phases. Even the seating arrangements held meaning. Elders dined on raised platforms to be nearer the heavens, while children were given honey cakes stamped with star patterns, edible lessons in celestial order. Meanwhile, in Babylon, the Esagila festival took a darker, more dramatic turn. Here, Nanna Sin's statue wasn't just honored, it was put on trial. Priests reenacted the god's mythic judgment before the divine assembly, accusing him of neglecting his duties if floods or plagues had occurred. The ritual sounds bizarre until you recognize its brilliance. By symbolically holding even the moon god accountable, Mesopotamians affirmed their belief in cosmic balance. A guilty verdict didn't anger Nanna Sin. It prompted his statue to be cleansed through elaborate rites, restoring harmony between heaven and earth. These festivals weren't mere parties, they were the operating system of Mesopotamian society. Contracts were signed during a Kitu, leveraging the god's presence as witness. Disputes were settled under the full moon's glow, its light considered the purest judge. And when the final procession returned the statue to the ziggurat, the entire city fell silent, not in disappointment, but in shared certainty that the cycles would continue, that the moon's light would guide them through another turning of the year. The echoes of these rituals linger today, from Easter's lunar calculations to Ramadan's moon-sighting traditions, proof that humanity still dances, in ways seen and unseen, to the ancient rhythm of celestial time. The words carved into clay tablets 4,000 years ago still pulse with devotion, their rhythmic lines capturing the awe Nanna Sin inspired in his worshippers. Among the most breathtaking is the hymn he shines over the land, where the poet proclaims, "Wild bull of the sky, your horns are the crescents of dawn, your hooves stamp out the hours of night." This isn't mere flattery, it's celestial cartography mapping the god's power through visceral imagery. The wild bull metaphor does double duty. It evokes untamed strength, yes, but also the fertile potency Mesopotamians saw in both lunar cycles and charging bulls. When the hymn describes Nanna Sin's light drenching the fields like cream from the udder, the comparison isn't accidental. Just as milk sustained life, the moon's glow nourished crops and regulated the seasons, a divine lactation ritual written in moonlight. Another hymn, the Exalted One who rises in splendor, employs startling personification. You wear the night as a robe, its fringes dripping silver. Here, Nanna Sin isn't merely in the sky, he adorns it, transforming darkness into regal attire. The dripping silver suggests liquidity, reinforcing his connection to tides and life-giving waters, but the true genius lies in the hymn's structure. Its stanzas mirror lunar phases, short, clipped lines for the waxing moon, expansive verses at full brightness, then dwindling syllables as the waning crescent approaches. This wasn't poetry about the god, it was poetry as the god, its form embodying his essence. The lament of the disappearing moon reveals a more intimate tone. Where have you gone, Father of Light? The orphans of the night weep for your return. The shift from majestic bull to grieving patriarch exposes Nanna Sin's dual role, both cosmic sovereign and personal protector. That word, orphans, cuts deep. Mesopotamians viewed the moonless night as a state of divine abandonment, where even stars seemed like lost children. Yet the lament's closing lines hold hope. 3 days you tarry in the land of no return, yet on the 4th your sickle reaps the darkness. The agricultural metaphor reassures, just as harvest follows planting, light will follow shadow. One prayer from Harran takes a startlingly legalistic approach. O sin, judge of gods and men, as you measure the heavens, measure my worth. The god's lunar phases become a cosmic scale, weighing souls with impartial precision. Another tablet from Ur captures a baker's plea. May your crescent rise like my loaves, may your fullness bless my ovens. The simplicity disarms. This isn't theology debated in ziggurats, but faith kneaded into daily bread. Most striking is how these texts blur boundaries between worship and science. A scribe's lunar observation log from Babylon abruptly shifts from dried data. On the 14th day, 3 fingers covered the disk to ecstatic praise. Your face, though veiled, outshines the torches of the gods. The numbers anchored rituals in reality, while the poetry lifted them beyond the mundane. To read these lines today is to witness the birth of both astronomy and lyricism, twin disciplines cradled in the moon god's luminous embrace. Nanna Sin's legacy stretches far beyond the silver glow of the moon. He was the silent architect of time, the stern judge of souls, and the lifeblood of the fields, a deity whose influence touched every facet of existence in ancient Mesopotamia. As the celestial timekeeper, his phases weren't just markers of days but the very pulse of civilization, dictating when to plant, when to harvest, and when kings should wage war. His lunar cycles were the original calendar, a divine metronome synchronizing human lives with the rhythms of the cosmos, yet his role as judge cut even deeper. In the underworld's shadowed halls, he weighed deeds with the precision of a mathematician, his verdicts as unyielding as the moon's inevitable return. And let's not forget the fields where his light wasn't just a beacon but a nurturer, coaxing barley from the earth and ensuring the rivers swelled with life. To the people of Ur, he wasn't just a god, he was the balance between order and chaos, between the counted days and the unfathomable beyond. This duality speaks to something primal in humanity's relationship with the moon. Long before telescopes or space probes, we looked up and saw more than a rock in the sky. We saw a story. Nanna Sin's myths, from his dramatic birth in the underworld to his monthly journeys across the heavens, were early attempts to make sense of the cosmos, to find meaning in the moon's quiet constancy. The same awe that drove Mesopotamian priests to track eclipses with trembling precision still stirs in us today when we pause under a full moon, feeling that inexplicable tug of wonder. There's a reason cultures from the Aztecs to the Norse spun tales of lunar deities. The moon is our first mirror, reflecting back our hopes, our fears, and our unending quest to understand our place in the universe. So tonight, step outside, look up. That same crescent that crowned Nanna Sin's brow still arcs across the sky, a thread connecting us to the stargazers of Ur. Whether you see a scientific marvel or a silent guardian of ancient myths, take a moment to marvel at how something so distant can feel so intimately tied to our stories. The moon's light is timeless, and so too are the questions it inspires about time, about justice, about the cycles that bind us all. In tracing its glow, we're not just observers, we're part of a conversation that began millennia ago under the same shimmering sky. From the silvery glow of Nanna Sin's crescent to the echoes of his hymns still whispering in the night sky, we've journeyed through the heart of Mesopotamian moonlight together. But before you go, let's keep the conversation alive. Drop a comment below telling me which moon myth from around the world fascinates you most. Is it the Japanese rabbit pounding mochi, or maybe the Norse wolves chasing the moon? Smash that like button if you felt the pull of ancient Ur's ziggurats, and subscribe to join me next time when we descend into the shadowy realm of the Mesopotamian underworld. What secrets lie beneath the earth where Nanna Sin once judged souls? The answers might just chill you to the bone. Until then, keep looking up, because every time you spot that crescent in the sky, you're glimpsing the same light that once guided kings, farmers, and dreamers 4,000 years ago. The moon hasn't forgotten its stories, and neither should we.